Hello and welcome to the January 2021 edition of the Pembrokeshire Bird Diary. I'm Annie Haycock from the Pembrokeshire Bird Group, here to share some of the highlights of the month. For me, the new year started with a dawn serenade from a song thrush, as have most mornings this month. Other resident species have also been singing occasionally when the weather is nice. In the garden, 2 robins were cautiously pairing up, the female trying to convince the male that she was a potential mate and not a rival. The birds themselves have difficulty in telling who is who. He was almost convinced until there was a bit of snow, and then he chased her away, but it didn't last long, and so far as we can tell, they've been together ever since. A pair of great spotted woodpeckers were visiting regularly, but separately. By the 3rd week they were visiting together. Then they were interrupted by another male trying to muscle his way in. After an hour or so of comings and goings, they sorted themselves out. Since then, it's been just a pair. Another species seen singly until the last few days of the month was the coal tit, and now there are 2, but we don't know if it's the same 2 all the time. We've recorded long-tailed tits passing along the hedgerows occasionally, but this was the first time one was seen actually visiting the feeder. It came alone for a few days before bringing a friend, and still we haven't seen more than 2. Judging by postings on the blog, quite a few people have had interesting birds in their garden. Several had blackcaps. Richard Ellis had a marsh tit. Jane Everett and Maggie Bismire both had willow tits, a pretty scarce bird these days. Steve Jarvis flushed 5 woodcock from his garden, while David Ord found 2 in his, as well as his first garden brambling since 2013. Melanie Felton saw this water rail being more bold than usual. David initiated the Pembrokeshire Lockdown Birding Challenges on Facebook during the first lockdown, and now brought them back for this one. By the end of January, the total number of species seen in gardens and on lockdown walks was 48, while 46 species had been photographed. For those folks who like to watch TV, there was an additional category, birds seen on telly from anywhere in the world at any season, with 177 species listed by the end of the month. Grocery shopping in Haverfordwest provided an excuse to watch the pied wagtails coming to roost at Withybush. As birds come in from various directions, they settle in trees and on roofs, often only to be disturbed by the local crows, so counting isn't easy. We estimated between 500 and 600, but there were still some arriving in the drizzle as we left. A study of wagtails at a roost in Reading showed that the birds were feeding up to 12 kilometres away, and that they overlapped with birds from other roosts. Any warm sheltered area could be used, including around buildings where a boiler is kept going most of the time, so all are worth checking out for roosting wagtails. Now let's find out what David Astins has been watching this month.
It was nice to start the new year with a birdie walk over to Marlowe's Mere from the Gan, but most of our efforts were focused on the Gan itself, and Brent geese were certainly prominent this month. Up to 42 birds present and presumably commuting backwards and forwards to Angle Bay. There was 1 dark-bellied bird amongst them, and a less obvious bird which proved to be a dark-bellied bird but with distinctly white flanks, which was slightly unusual for this particular race. Moving to the cormorants, before Christmas we had 1 bird of the sinensis race, and during January we identified at least 3 individuals that fitted the criteria for this subspecies. Looking at colour-ringed birds, the birds ringed by the Pembrokeshire Ringing Group, focusing on waders, kept us busy with a total of 184 re-sightings throughout the month, including redshank. This bird, number 88, was on the lagoon. Oyster catchers probably made up half the sightings, and were recorded around the bay and on the lagoon itself. And curlew were again present in various locations. Number 15 was regularly in the field next to the Gan car park. Moving on to gulls, one noticeable thing during the month was an increase in larger gulls. A group of lesser blackback gulls developed, perhaps 200 birds were present during the month. Mostly adults, as we would come to expect in Pembrokeshire, where most of our younger birds head south for the winter. And we enjoyed, as usual, looking for colour-ringed birds. This Mediterranean gull, ALJA, was from Germany, and we'd seen it before. We also had Mediterranean gulls from Belgium and from as far afield as Serbia. Great black-backed gull from Norway, a black-headed gull from Norway, plus regular sightings of great black-backed gull and herring gull from Skokkum and the odd sighting of herring gull from Skoma.
The Wetland Bird Survey has been suspended during this national lockdown, but some of us are able to include our count sites in our daily exercise, so we do have some idea of the numbers of wildfowl and waders around. Large flocks of golden plovers have been a feature this winter, particularly on the Cleddau in the Picton area. This flock contains at least 4,500 birds, counted from the photograph. With flocks being seen regularly in other parts of the estuary, as well as other parts of the county, such as the St David's Peninsula, Castle Martin Course and the Teivi Estuary, we have a minimum of 8,500 birds here. Golden plovers seem to be erratic visitors, lots in some years, very few in others. Sometimes the large numbers are here for only a month or two, sometimes they stay around all winter, as they have this season. Usually the reasons for the fluctuations are down to the weather, with harsh winter conditions or extensive flooding forcing the birds to move further to the south and west. The Winter Atlas map shows they can be found almost anywhere in the county if people keep a lookout for them. Try large fields that are being kept short by sheep grazing. Two wetland species that rarely make it into the Webb's count are hooper swans and cattle egrets. The 9 hooper swans that were in the Groesgach area last month are still around and have been joined by a 10th, and the 11 or so cattle egrets are still to be seen in the Hundleton area. Rooks and jackdaws are well known for feeding and roosting in large numbers. Bosherston Lakes, Angle Bay, Lisa Fran and stubble fields near St David's are among the best places to see the spectacle. Georgina Ferry in St Dogmills has been watching her local flock and estimates about 1,000 of them, mixed jackdaws and rooks, of which the jackdaws are the most vociferous. Here she has started to count part of the flock from a photo, circling groups of 10 birds. It would be interesting to hear about such large counts elsewhere. While on the subject of jackdaws, Dave Astin has persisted in trying to read the ring of this bird in his garden. To get the whole number, you need a series of clear photos from several angles. This individual was ringed as a chick at Mullock, just over a kilometre away, back in 2007. So it's nearly 13 years and 8 months old. Not quite as old as the oldest ever recorded, which was 18 years and 26 days, but well over the average of 5 years. Mike and Teresa Sherman reported that a chiffchaff ringed in their garden in June 2017 was found near Porto in northern Portugal on the 12th of January this year. At 3.5 years old, that's pretty good going for a chiffchaff. In fact, that chiffchaff from Keyston is the oldest and the furthest travelled chiffchaff from Pembrokeshire in the last decade at least. Well, that's a quick look at January. Thanks for watching, and please keep an eye out for the February edition.